All right, so I can hear you, Ryan, but can the
Okay.
world hear you?
I
Say
don't
so.
know. We're have to find out.
Oh, I think they can. I
Uh,
think we did it, boys.
is that working? Is that working?
I think so. Give me one sec.
We did it.
I think we
Okay.
did. Let's wait to the live stream to catch up.
Quidditch, Cumberbund,
Are these your?
Quizzle.
All right, so I can hear
Trying to think of Q British words and Quidditch and Cumberbund are the way things that. No, Cumberbund's not Q. That's like a C or something.
Cumberbund is a C. Is it British? Is
Oh,
Cumberbund
yeah.
British?
I don't know, but it sounds British.
I mean, it certainly does. Ugh, are you?
It sounds British. That's
I-
all that matters.
I gotta say, I've been learning plenty of words. Do you know the word mank? I learned the word mank recently.
I do not know the word man.
This is how the word mank was pitched to me. In your fridge right now, there may be a drawer. And in that drawer, there may be an old, disused, but bought with good intentions package of lettuce that one day you were going to turn into a salad, but is now currently rotting in the back of your fridge. Its current state is called mank. And that's how that's been described to me.
Okay, but it doesn't have to be lettuce. It could be like
It could be anything, and it could be like anything could be manky.
in the fridge. Yeah.
Like this, the bottom of this tissue box could be manky if it was gross. It's kind of like gross and rotted and like weird.
Okay.
Yeah, it's my new British word. Now you know.
Okay.
Are you?
Most of my Britishisms are related to cars because of Top Gear.
Top
Other
Gear.
than that, like, it's just in passing, like, if I come across something or not.
So hold on.
That's, like, British terminology.
Are you a Top Gear fan for Top Gear, or are you a Top Gear fan for the original three?
I am a Top Gear fan in general. Like,
Okay.
Well, so I'm a Top Gear fan starting in the late 90s when they revamped it.
Yeah.
With Clarkson and what's his name, the little one, Hamster.
Hammond.
Hammond, there we go. I was a fan starting like going back and watching it then because I liked the way those two did car reviews.
Yeah.
Like legit, I liked it for the cars and not just them, but I also liked it for them too. Like it was equal. And it brought Captain Slow on. I can't remember his actual name at the moment.
James May.
James May, thank
Gotcha,
you.
man.
My memory recall is not working right now. And it became more of a spectacle, and then it turned into like a comedy car show for like guys.
Yes,
like,
it did.
So like I'm not sure if the UK had it, but like Comedy Central had on like the Man Show.
Oh yeah.
In like the late 90s, like I feel like Top Gear was the appropriate way to do the Man Show.
The Man Show was not good.
To the it was over the top, like it was just over the top ridiculousness. Like
it was
its own satire show. Like that's what the Man Show was. Like it was just straight up satire the entire time. Like it was making fun of itself.
It was. I'm getting that mixed up with Mansers, the Spike TV thing. That took itself dead seriously and was not satire. The Man Show, I think, was satire.
No. Mm-hmm.
Speaking of satire, Ryan, should we get in today's show?
I mean, typically, yeah.
Do you want me to do the intro?
Let's get it. I mean, if you want to start it, that's fine.
It would be my honor, Ryan.
Okay.
Hey everyone, welcome to You Have to Watch This podcast. I'm Devon.
And I'm Ryan. And
today, we're talking about the Terry Pratchett masterpiece movie, The Amazing Maurice. So for those of you new to the show, this is a show where me and my two coworkers typically have each other watch movies that they've never seen before. If you are watching us live or watching the video version of this, you'll notice that we are missing one. If you're hearing us, that's a different person doing the intro. When last I heard from Alan, he was something about at the Hershey factory trying to unionize the Reese's Pieces. Is that where he's at, Ryan?
I believe so.
Yeah.
It's overdue, and someone needed to do it.
So you know what?
decided to take on that responsibility.
He's the hero that we deserve, not the one that we need. It's exactly it. Or is it the one we need, not the one we deserve? That one, the one, yeah.
Yeah. That the pieces needed.
Best of luck, Alan. Godspeed, man. So we typically start our shows by talking about what we've seen in pop culture this week. Ryan, have you seen anything in pop culture this week?
I mean, nothing new. I mean, Kristen and I, we are rewatching Stranger Things for the new season coming out.
Yeah.
And we are, like, almost halfway through season 4, so we're almost done on our rewatch. We're doing, like, on weekdays, we watch an episode of Stranger Things, and then we watch an episode of ER, because it turned out that I like ER. So
I love it.
Going through that because of The Pitt. Because of watching The Pitt, I got turned on to ER. So I'm watching all that for the first time. So it's very funny watching like a show that is new to me that starts in 1994. So it's like, you know, it's like you watch an episode of The Pitt and they are using, devices to trach people that have little cameras on it so they can actually see where the tube is going down the throat to make sure they're doing it right.
Wow.
And then you watch an episode of ER and they go to do a trach and they're just like, just feel it. You just got to feel it and visualize it and just go. And it's like,
ooh.
Yeah.
It gets so much better.
30-year difference
here.
There is a 30-year difference here of like medical tech. So, yeah. So nothing new. Like, besides The Pitt, but,
Is The Pitt done now?
Going, and I've talked about it a little bit.
Is The Pitt over now? Is the season done?
No. It's still going, and I cannot, like, the more episodes that come out, the stronger the series gets. The more that, like, the more I recommend this show. Okay. Like, it is just... From someone who has been a patient in many different ways, going in and out of the ER, it's good in more ways than just it's a good drama. Like there are some typical Hollywood stuff like TV series, stuff that happens, but like the core of it is pretty accurate and pretty realistic.
Very cool.
So
I'm gonna have to give it a watch. I just have to find it. It's on HBO Max, yeah.
It's on HBO Max over here. It's across the pond. You guys have different,
That's why I'm really excited to talk about that actually when we get to our main topic today. But speaking of across the pond, one of the things that I've been watching this week that I didn't pull a picture for, but maybe we just talk about it. Ryan, have you seen The Office?
I've seen bits and pieces of it.
Okay.
I've seen as much as The Office as I've seen Seinfeld. I'll put it that way.
Okay. Have you seen like British and American or just American?
You mean the British Office?
Yeah.
Okay. So I've seen bits and pieces of that one.
Yeah, I gotcha. Mm-hmm. So I'm like you. I've seen bits and pieces of the British one. I've seen the American one maybe five times completely through now. I watch it a lot, or used to watch it quite a lot, especially in my 20s. I, for the first time, watched the Australian version of it, the brand new one that came out not long ago. Have you heard anything about this?
The only Australian show that I know about work is a bunch of people that work in, like, a retail store. I don't even know if that was real or not.
Might have been a fever dream you had one day.
Yeah.
No, I love it. This one, I think, got relatively critically panned when it came out, and it's kind of a shame, and it got panned for some reasons that I think may be semi-legitimate, and some reasons it certainly weren't. So one of the main things is they switched out the Michael Scott character / Ricky Gervais character. That character is now a woman. A lot of the other roles are now played by women, but not majority. I mean, it's still pretty male-centric, and it got a lot of flack for that. I've been watching it, and I'm now, I think, 5 episodes in, and it's good. It is very good. I think that if the American Office didn't exist, I would like it a lot more, because sometimes you can tell that they're almost doing like a Steve Carell impression.
Gotcha.
And I don't... I don't love that part of it, but also it is funny. Like, it is technically good. It is technically funny. They get put in very similar awkward situations, but there's 2023, 2024 twists in it. Like, everyone wants to work remotely, but she's making them all work at the office.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that when it comes to working conditions, things change pretty quickly
Yeah.
anymore. So, like, I would say even 3 to 4 years after The Office stopped airing, you technically would probably need a revamp or a reboot or like a new edition with new uh actors in it simply because just workplace technology changes.
It's just
Like,
different, yeah.
you know, I mean, here, just to give an example, if let's say you worked for 30, 40 years and you retired 2 years before Teams app came out,
Right.
okay? 5 years after retirement, you decide, crap, I can't stay retired, and you go back into the workforce, and all of a sudden you have to use Teams.
Yeah.
You're going to want to throw yourself out the window. You're going to want to, so I mean, like, things change real quick sometimes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I could, I can totally get that. One thing that I do, you said before about it getting flack, I'm pretty sure you mean online
Yeah, well,
when it
just
came to like the way
weird,
it's.
gross online communities that...
Yeah. So I've gotten to the point now where, like, I used to look at IMDb ratings because I've said before on the show, like, Kristen and I kind of have like a set where, like, as long as something has above a 5 rating, we give it a chance
It's good
because of
enough.
just how like the rating system is.
Yeah.
We've completely thrown that out the window because
Why?
people are now review bombing on IMDb.
That's an absolute pain. I hate that.
Like there's a movie specifically that literally just came out and it already has 94,000 reviews and it's at a 1.9
What?
on IMDb. It's the newest Disney movie to come out. Snow White.
Oh, people suck.
People do suck.
Yeah,
So when it
okay.
comes to stuff like that, I just completely ignore it.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as someone starts critiquing the ethnicity or the gender of certain characters, I just stop paying attention.
It's a good
Straight
call.
up stop paying attention to what they're complaining about.
Yeah.
Because it's stupid. I really wish as as much as I complained about Siskel and
Ebert.
Herbert?
Ebert.
As much as I complained about those two when I was younger,
Mm-hmm.
of, like, critics because they crapped on some movies that I really, really like and I feel deserved a lot better, like, high profile reviews.
Yeah.
I really wish that like culture of cinema critics were back.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of like the modern, like, anyone can be a critic now and anyone can put a review and then like it tabulates everyone together and the number. Like, nah, I'm not a fan. Like,
Yeah. And it is
yeah.
ironic
So
and great coming from a movie review podcast. I love it.
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't. I truly don't. Okay, so truly, real quick.
Yeah,
since
yeah.
we don't really have anything to like go back and forth on, like we normally do on this part of the podcast. I'm just gonna get on my own little, like, my view of what we actually do here.
Good. Let's do
I
it.
don't really see us as a review of like a movie review podcast.
Okay.
I see this more as because like none of us are real critics.
That's certainly true.
We don't like I have no education in the cinema space at all. I just like movies. I'm just entertained by a few of them. By my picks of the movies I've had you guys watch, a core of them is a bunch of guy movies from the 90s. So like like and I've got maybe a few movies that I do put on pedestals that it's like everyone should see this and everyone should like read a, it's like read a short essay on like what the meaning of like said movie is. That's why I've got this poster right behind me.
I love it.
So I mean, like, yeah, I do look into movies a, 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 a little bit deeper than some people, but no one in their right mind should be listening to me and going, "Well, Ryan on this one podcast said he didn't like it, so I'm going to go off what he says
We
and
are
not watch it." Like, no,
tastemakers,
don't
Ryan.
be an idiot. It's like, no, don't listen to me. Watch it, watch it for yourself and figure out if you like it or not.
Yeah.
So I just see us as three friends that want to share movies that we like personally with each other, and then just kind of crossing our fingers and hoping that everyone enjoys it and no one really hates it. Like that's really what I see this as being.
Well, and you know what? That's totally fair. And for that reason, this is why this episode, like we were going to wait for the Reese's Revolution to end for Alan to come on. But I am so excited to talk about this. I literally couldn't wait. So that's why I wanted to just kind of go ahead with it anyway today, because like this is one of the things that I think I've probably been most excited to talk about in a while. So, do you want to get to the main topic of today with that lovely transition in place?
I mean, let's. I have got my notes up because I actually took them as we went by. So
very impressed. So today we are talking about, and let me pull the version of the poster that says the word trailer on it up, because that's the best one I could find. But it also has where I watched it, which is really important to me. But today we are talking about the 2022 movie, The Amazing Maurice, directed by Toby Genkel and Florian Westerman. That's important. We'll come back to that. But this is a movie that I had seen before that fits very nicely into one of my fandoms that we will talk about today for very good reasons. And this month, and it's in the description, not this month, but technically April, but this is the last shot I get before the beginning of April, is what I'm going to be considering Pratchett month. And it's something that I don't get to celebrate with anyone but me, because I'm the only person I actually know that is this passionate about these books. So I'm making you, and by extension kind of Alan, join me in my celebration by talking about this. So first off, Ryan, have you even heard of this movie before I mentioned it?
No. No. In fact, my dyslexia took the wheel last week when you told us like what this was, and I thought I had Googled Amazing Maurice, but I Googled something else, and some magician puppet from the Muppets popped on my phone, and I had to show you guys like the picture.
That's what that was.
Like, no, this isn't what you're talking about. What? Like. Yeah.
So I need to know. So this is one of the things that I was most curious about, because this movie came out in 2022. It released in only a few theaters, only in the UK, but largely its release was on something called Sky Cinema, which is like our version of HBO, kind of. It's like if Comcast was also HBO, is kind of like what Sky is. And you could see it in the logo over there, down there. You can see it there. So it largely released there. Where did you watch this?
On Hulu.
It's on Hulu.
Surprisingly enough, when I Googled it, it showed up that it was on Hulu.
Mm-hmm.
It did not show up that it was on Disney, because typically it'll, if it's on one, it's on the other, and it shows up on the Google search that it's on both. This was one of the few movies that is like that only show up on one and not the other. Wow. So I found that interesting.
I can't imagine that the rights to this movie are very like ubiquitous or easy to obtain. So that's really cool, and I'm glad it was easy for you guys to watch, because I was going to start recommending like log into my Sky account with a less than legal way, but it was fine. You guys got it. So what'd you think?
It was good. It was actually a lot more entertaining than what I give it credit for. And something I noticed, and Kristen does not agree with me, but my ears are telling me that I'm hearing it, and maybe if she's not, I don't know. Maybe I have a weird sense of what this actor sounds like, but I know it's Hugh Laurie.
Yeah.
Like he's the voice of the cat. I swear to God, I couldn't tell who it was, and there were a few moments where I'm like, "Is this Hugh Grant? Is Hugh Grant playing the cat?"
Yeah.
And so I looked it up and I saw that it was Hugh Laurie. And the best way to describe it, which I did to my wife, was it's Hugh Laurie doing a Hugh Grant impression. That's what the cat sounds
Yeah.
like. And she was like, "What?" She was like, it doesn't make any sense." And I played some scenes for her, and she
Yeah.
was like, "I'm not hearing Hugh Grant. I just hear Hugh Laurie." And I'm
Aw.
like, so like, so like, to me, I can't help but see it as like a moment when they were trying to figure out the voice, and Hugh Laurie was just goofing around and decided to say some lines from the last Willy Wonka movie, and they were like, "Do that,
That one.
do the Hugh
That
Grant
one.
impression."
I Yes, so I almost had exactly the same thing. So if you didn't tell me this was Hugh Laurie, I wouldn't have caught it, I don't think. And I think it's because I'm so used to hearing him as House that like I'm not sure that I could even clock his British accent if he was speaking to me in British accent. So like
Yeah.
I see it. I definitely do. Did you catch other voices in this movie?
Honestly, no.
Okay.
The Grim Reaper I thought was someone who I can't name at the moment, and I couldn't name, like, I heard the voice and I had a face flash
Uh-huh.
in my head. Mm. And when I looked it up, it wasn't that person. So like
Gotcha.
the only person that I recognized was, well, not recognized, but yeah,
Like heard
the
right
cat
away.
was the only one that I was hearing, and I'm like, I think I know who this is. Everyone else, no chance in hell.
I couldn't have done this, but when my Romana watched it with me, when Romana was watching it, she goes, "That's Emilia Clarke. You can hear that straight away." And I'm like, "I'm glad one of us can," because I don't know that I
Who's
like.
Amelia?
She plays Daenerys in Game of Thrones. That's like her most famous role. She plays the
Oh,
lead.
yeah.
Yeah, she plays Melissia in this.
Okay.
Anyway, so I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad you liked it more than you thought you would. So, to give
Yeah.
you a quick recap of what the movie's about, the movie is about a talking cat named Maurice and his kind of load of also talking rats and his friend Keith. They go from town to town, swindling towns into believing that Keith is the Pied Piper, and they're getting a rat infestation and then curing the rat infestation for money. And one of the days they come to this town called Bat Bat, and in that town they run into a kind of rat catcher that things aren't that's kind of like rough and challenge and fun ensues, and I love it. It's essentially a satire on the Pied Piper storyline and a satire a little bit on fairy tales in general. There's a couple of lines in there that really kind of satirize it. I, for one, thought the performances were great in it. What did you think of the performances, Ryan? Like in general?
I bleh. Sorry. The performances were good. That was not my reaction to the performances, by the way. I gotta make weird noises to get over a stutter occasionally. So the bleh was me, yeah.
Was you getting
So,
oh, gotcha.
the performance, yeah, the performances were good.
Hmm.
I have to, like, what made this movie better than what I was expecting was that everyone was done well. Like visually, all of the characters were done well. The body language was done right with the voice acting. Um, the only thing that kind of made me roll my eyes um, was the head rat catcher in this, which I know we'll talk about in a little bit, because
Yeah.
as soon as he was on screen, I knew exactly what it was. But then again, this is like a kids movie,
Right.
so I get why it looks like the way it does.
Yeah.
But like as an adult, I feel like they could have tried a little harder to not make it so obvious from
Obfuscated
like
just
the
a little
second
bit.
they were on screen.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Um,
I'm, yeah.
yeah, everyone did well.
Yeah. I'm happy that you liked the animation specifically because one of the weird things about this movie is that it was made entirely during the pandemic. None of the people that made the movie were actually together in the same room, to the point where there were two animation studios, one in Sheffield here in the UK and one in Hamburg in Germany, and they created a kind of a bespoke pipeline just to animate and keep this movie going while the pandemic was happening, which is why you have two directors, one German one and one clearly from the UK, which I thought was pretty cool. And it's, I can't say that you could really tell, which I think is good. It doesn't seem like they cut many corners
No,
or anything.
I would say that this movie should be shown in the face of every single person who believes that remote work isn't doesn't give the same you know doesn't produce the same as like in-person work, which
Agreed.
anyone who actually does do work can tell you that, but it seems that everyone who makes the decisions to whether or not people actually work from home or work at an office
Yeah.
don't seem to understand. So,
I mean, that's super right, though, because I think that it's still quality work and it was clearly all done remotely. So, just walking through the movie, how did you feel about the fact that the movie not only has a framing device, but literally calls out that it's a framing device? Did that work for you? Did that not work for you?
I feel like I've seen more shows, not more shows. I feel like I've seen more media start to do this.
Okay.
Kind of be like really mad about themselves. So I wasn't surprised when they started doing that. Um, I do have to say though, as I get older, I think I'm getting dumber. And like even through like the first half of the movie, I was like, why is this like why is this bunny book the framing device and what does that even mean? Like I was having those moments and it took me a little bit to catch up and like realize like, oh, okay, yeah, that's right. Like
I had the same thing with the money because I'm like, okay, how is this going to tie directly into what they're doing? And I'm like, okay, so it's a book in the movie, got it. They like it, okay. What else? And I think I was looking for something
Yeah.
like way deep and way meaningful to connect the framing device to the plot, and it was just what it was. It was the tale of
Yeah,
Mr.
it was
Bunsey.
yeah, it was the tale, yeah, and very, 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 very five more varies loosely related to the main plot of the movie.
Yes, that's exactly it. I mean, it was
Because sometimes there is no meaning to a fairy tale. Because sometimes,
it was paper thin, this
as they mentioned in
connection.
the movie.
Yes, and you know what? That's fine. Sometimes that's totally fine. You don't need anything more than that.
Yeah.
What did Okay, so with that in mind, what did you think of the rats? Did you like them? And if so, did you have a
Oh,
favorite?
I thought the rats were good. Like,
Yeah.
I would put this like the characters of the rats in this. I would put on the same tier as like Ratatouille of like
Oh
how
yeah.
much I liked the like all of the supporting rat roles for Ratatouille, like his
Yeah.
dad, his mother, like everyone else. I would put Maurice the cat in like Ratatouille's role, and
Yeah.
then Peaches and Danger in the father rat and brother rat roles, and then everyone else in like the background. Like
Supporting
I would
rats.
put all of them on tier for Ratatouille when it comes to like supporting rat characters.
Yes, I really like that. I gotta tell you, it took me a disturbing amount of time in the movie to understand where their names came from. Did you? Did you? I mean, they even said it right in the middle of it,
Yeah,
and then during one scene, I was like,
like
oh,
yeah, like as they were getting smarter, they began reading, and of course, the things were readily available were just labels,
yep.
and so that's where they were getting their names from.
But like the thing that I really
Yeah.
like about that is they become a bit of a joke in and of themselves too. That like you hear the names so often that like they stop really being a joke, but they still are. So like sardines and peaches, you know what they were eating and what they read with that. But then you get something
Yeah.
like dangerous beans. Like why is that written on something? What was he eating?
Well, I mean, it was a garbage heap from a wizard's lair.
That's fair.
So I mean, you know, danger beans. I mean, maybe they were beans you eat when you're constipated, and that's what, you know, it's like danger. Don't eat too many of these. You
Right.
know, like danger beans.
Could
I don't know.
it could be they could be magic beans, but dangerous
Yeah,
ones. I thought that was so
dangerous
fun.
beans.
Or that one of them was called dark tan, which like is probably just bronzer.
Yeah.
It just I don't know. I thought that was really fun, and I liked what the rats were, and I like how they got like I like that backstory for them, and I also really enjoyed how Maurice became sentient and could talk, and what that meant for his character. Did you have any reactions to that specifically?
I mean, I I was waiting for that to happen
Yeah,
because they did kind of allude to it like halfway through the movie. And I remember thinking to myself, yeah, he ate one of them. He was a cat,
you
he
get
ate
it.
one of
Yeah,
them, and that's how he got, yeah, like, okay, so at some point they're gonna learn that he ate one of their friends that they're like have wondered where, you know, like, oh, I wonder where Bob went. Like, yeah, there's a reason why the one cat in the group can speak. There's
right.
a-
So one of the things I really love about anything written by Terry Pratchett is that he handles some interesting subject matter in all of his works. We'll obviously get to it, but he handles some interesting subject matter, and one of the things that he handled in this was classic fairy tales,
Mhm.
specifically when they went to visit the real Pied Piper. One of the things
Yes.
one of the things I thought was funny is that they're like, yeah, it's kind of messed up. Like all of them are kind of, and like if you actually met one of them, they'd almost be a psychopath.
Yeah, so I actually have in my notes the original fairy tales are the best. She's right.
Yeah, she is.
Because they are like the original. What's the name of the authors?
Like Grimm's fairy
Because
tales.
they were German. Hmm?
Was it Grimm?
Grimm. Yeah, 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 that. Like, they are old dark because it came from a time where you know, like the average person's life was dark. So it was like these stories were to just reinforce that, like, hey, this stuff happens to everyone. It's not just you.
Yeah.
It's not just your family. Like these horrible things happen to everyone. And I loved how, like, at first when they came across the original Piper, I
Mhm.
was like, "Oh, cool. Okay, so this is, you know, this is a pretty cool setup. They're in the forest, and all of a sudden there's light, and but then when it turns out that he's a complete psychopath, it goes from being like a, you know, it's like a cool setup and like something that I found like is, you know, interesting to creepy. Like it went from one to the other,
Yeah.
especially when it especially when it took him 11 to 10 seconds to fall down the well.
Yeah. Right, because you knew that that wasn't the first time anything had fallen down that well. Like
Yeah.
that's not new for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, I just thought it was really really good. I liked what he had to say about the original fairy tales, and I like the idea of like looking at one of them and going, "Oh, this would actually not be great for two kid heroes." Got it.
Yep.
Oh, what else did you take in terms of notes? I'm curious about what more of your thoughts were.
Um, so the one line that I copied down was back off, Mr. Too Many Belts.
I did like that one.
Yeah. So there was definitely a lot of good one-liners in this movie.
Yeah.
Um, and just a lot of good back and forth. And so that I really like. But then again, this is what I consider like a true British like movie. So I kind of like I expect like you know very good writing out of it.
Right.
Um, I have down that all the little rat hands grabbing peaches was extremely creepy,
Yes.
creepier than probably it should have been, but it was awesome because it worked really, really well. Like it was, yeah. And then I have the okay, so I touched on it. We didn't go over it, so I have to with with this note.
Okay.
The the echoing rat voices reminded me of Russell Crowe and virtuosity as his program deletes. So like Wayne Ratcatcher is what I was
Yeah.
talking about before.
Yeah.
Um, Maurice calls it a Rat King. Now, I need to ask you about this because the only time I've ever heard the term Rat King
Hmm.
ever used before in my life was for a character on the original Turtles cartoon.
Oh,
He
really?
was the guy that had like the bandages on his face. Like he was the Rat King.
Right,
Like
right.
that
Yeah.
was his
Yeah.
name. Yeah. So that's my only connection to anything called Rat King before.
Oh,
And
wow.
so in the movie that we're talking about here,
Uh-huh.
they show the head rat catcher, and it's literally just a trench coat and a hat with a scarf wrapped around the face.
Yeah.
And as soon as they showed it, I was like, that's 5 raccoons in a trench coat. It didn't wind up being raccoons, it was a bunch of rats.
Right, right.
Um, but that first thing I thought, and like, and eventually I figured out, I was okay. Well, this is just a bunch of rats in a this is just a bunch of rats inside a trench coat. But but the use of what a rat king is in this is like what 6 or 7 rats tie their tails together and then create like a consciousness based off themselves that like equals something to like a human brain.
Yeah.
Um, is that like a legend over there? Like, is there like, is
Oh.
that like the British version of like the boogeyman or something?
Oh no, Ryan, don't Google this. Don't. So rat kings are real things. They're not just like a UK thing. They're like anywhere that rats are. So a rat king in real life is literally just when multiple rats accidentally get their tails tied together in a circle. And what happens is they all try to scurry off in opposite directions to the point where the rat king itself as an entity cannot move and their tails get more and more and more tight. And they eventually die of
Yeah.
either thirst or starvation all in a massive group together. Like that's something
Oh,
real
okay.
that happens to rats and is really sad. And there are some
Yeah.
like I've seen a couple of them in real life and they're not great. The part
Yeah.
where they become a magic rat, like
Yeah.
consciousness, that one's just strictly that's all Pratchett. But
Okay.
yeah, but it's a good show. There are some weird like fairy tales over here that are very different, and I always like that kind of stuff.
Okay. Yeah, because like to be honest, I was thinking it was like this has got to be some weird like mythology thing, like in
Yeah.
central or northern London or in southern London. There's like, oh, don't go into the sewers, the Rat King will get you, and it's like just a mass of rats or something.
You're
That's
not.
what I legit thought that this was.
I mean, look,
So yeah,
that's a pretty like reasonable myth. Like it's along the same lines of like
yeah,
alligators in the New York sewers, right? It's like that.
yeah. Like that's
That's
legit the same type of thing I
it's
was thinking.
exactly yeah.
Yeah,
No, no,
like
that's pretty comparable.
okay.
Um,
Okay, so yeah, and then the last thing is
mhm.
death and rat death. My favorite joke of the whole thing, the grim squeaker.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
I have a pin of the Grim
yeah.
Squeaker.
Oh,
I
nice,
love him.
nice. That makes me happy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you brought it up, so I got to start. I got to start talking about it. What did you think of Death and the Grim Squeaker?
Okay, so since we've been talking, I finally have the name of the person that I thought was Death to begin
Okay.
with.
Yeah.
And and it's not a name, more or less characters that they've played in movies that they were in,
Okay.
but Voldemort.
Oh, okay. Sure.
That's who I thought Death was in this for a second, and not because he doesn't have a nose, and not, but because that's legit who I thought he sounded like, and that's when I was like, I had to look up the cast while I was watching the movie, and that's when one I realized that it was Hugh Laurie who was Maurice, and then two that it was not the guy from the Menu. um,
Ray Fiennes.
in thank you. That it wasn't that. But then I also realized that an actor like him, unless he knew someone who was involved in this, I don't see him being a character that's in the movie for like 30 seconds.
Right.
Anything
Right.
like this.
No, he would be a much bigger part of it.
At the same time. Yeah. So yeah, so like those are the notes that I had down
Okay.
for it. Um, okay, so I missed the town name that they wind up in, and all of this goes down. What was the
Yeah.
name of the town again?
I think it was called Bad Barts.
Bad Barts. Okay, so when the when
Oh,
the
Bad
woman
Blints. Sorry.
character, hmm?
Bad Blints, it's called. Sorry.
What'd you say?
Oh, I think I lost your audio. Can you mic quick?
Should oh,
I hear it.
we go.
Yes.
So the girl character, the one
Yes.
that helps out, and she's the narrator at the beginning.
Hmm.
Is she playing the same person?
Yeah, she
Like,
is.
is the narrator okay? So I was waiting for an explanation on the bat patterned upholstered chair that she has in her library.
Her last name is Grimm, and I think that's it. Like she's meant to be like a play on that.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, she's a
Okay.
play on like
That makes sense.
the Grimms.
Okay.
It's not an obvious one.
I missed that part. I missed that.
No,
Okay.
she says it real quick.
Okay. But yeah, so yeah, overall I liked it. I
Yeah.
liked the play on the whole fairy tale like thing. Um and I enjoy that there's a movie that actually touches on how like horrific the original fairy tales actually were. I know that this does happen every now and then that movies come out and they kind of play with this stuff,
Uh huh.
but I really think that they need to make some high-end horror movies that are strictly based on these old fairy tales
Agreed.
and go as dark as these fairy tales go.
Agreed.
Like I would
Completely
really
agreed.
like to see that.
Yeah, yeah, I like that they do that, that they play with it, but I think that they really should have a horror movie. Like there was one like there's like the rat, the grasshopper, and the sausage or something like that. Like, and in the end they like all end up dead. Like it's such a weird like it could be good horror. I think you're exactly right.
Yeah, like it definitely could, especially especially if they were to set the aura the same way the movies like The Witch
Yep.
play out. Like just kind of like the slow burn suspense.
Mm-hmm.
Every scene is uneasy, like type of feel
It would work
would be
really
good.
well.
Hmm.
So, if those are the end of your notes, I have to talk to you about the wider Discworld because some of my
Okay.
favorite parts of this movie were the references that they made to Discworld, to the point where Romano was watching it with me, and it on more than one occasion caused me to go because I was so excited that those things happened and those things popped up. So first off, this is probably most basic one in the mayor's office. The statue or the bust of a person that's in there, that's Terry Pratchett. That's the author of the books. I love that. But also in the mayor's
Cool.
office, I don't know if you knew this, but they have a picture of the world in in the the mayor's office. Did you catch the
Okay.
picture of the world?
Honestly, I did not.
Okay. So Discworld is where it takes place. It doesn't take place on Earth or some like other version of it. It takes place on a place called Discworld. Discworld is a flat world, literally a disc that sits on top of four elephants that sit on top of a turtle that fly through space. And in the mayor's office is a picture
Ah,
of that.
okay. So, my relation to Discworld, um, is in the video game, The Division 2,
Okay.
uh, which is set in DC. One
Mm-hmm.
of the government institutional buildings that you have to go into because a gang has taken it over
Mm-hmm.
is like the Division World's version of NASA.
Oh, sure,
So like
sure.
you have to go in there and like, reactivate a bunch of satellites to like get your network to start working again.
Hmm.
There's a hidden room that you have to like use a you have to like activate a certain computer that's in one of the office floors you walk through, and then you have to like go to a printer and
Yeah.
turn the printer on, and then it prints out like a code. And then you go into a room that has like a keypad in it, and you put the code you get from that piece of paper in it, and it opens up, and you walk behind like a blind, and there's a turtle with a Discworld on its back, and a bunch of like,
That's incredible. Oh, that
yeah,
makes me so happy that you've like at least heard of this before.
yeah, yeah. So I was like, I remember looking at it and going, "This has got to be some type of like Easter egg to some weird fantasy thing," and then I just
Right.
went out of the room.
And you were right. But you were right. You
And
got it.
yeah.
I'm happy we can now make that connection these many years in the future. So, Discworld is currently my favorite book series. I am running through them. There are 40 of them in total. I have about a fourth of them here. Uh, I absolutely love them specifically because they're all very similar to this movie, where every single one of these is a satire of something. All of these are. And the satire is very kind and very gentle. It's not very malicious in what it is. And its broad range of satire is anything from this one, which is at the bottom called Guards Guards. It's making fun of, in movies, whenever the guards come and someone goes, Guards, Guards! And then people rush into the room and are immediately killed by the hero. It's making fun of those
Mhm.
guys. I also really appreciate this one called The Fifth Elephant, making fun of Fifth Element,
Okay.
because of course it is. This one called Masquerade makes fun of
That's
Phantom of the Opera. And all of these are all about that character death and the death of rats. And they answer big questions like, what does it mean to believe in something? And how does rock and roll music affect you? And look, it's the Grim Squeaker. And even questions like, what does it mean to cheat death, or what happens when death takes time off? I
yeah.
think it's incredible, and the thing that I love so much is that a lot of what he talks about now is hyper relevant. Like this one is about racism, and everything he talks about is everything that I'm currently hearing. Or this one is
Yeah.
about what it means to be female in a traditionally male coded workplace. And none of it's changed. These books were written in the 70s. All of them are still as hyper
Yeah.
relevant as they were, when they were written. And in one way that's
Mhm.
really cool, because I love that, right? I love that it's relevant and it speaks to me and all of those things. The other thing is, damn it, it's still relevant. Like, I can't be like, oh, do you remember sexism in the 70s? Isn't that cute?
So that touches on something that um, I've had this mindset about stuff like this since I don't know, God, I don't know, college. Um, in this, in the grand scheme of things, in like wherever you want to pin this, human evolution, societal changes, the way societies develop, wherever you want to pin this, you can pin this. But this is just my overall arcing thought on it. For things to change systemically, so political beliefs, economic beliefs, traditions, what people consider normal, that stuff, there is no way any of that can change within a few generations without a lot of pushback
Mm-hmm.
without a lot of pushback and negative effects to those changes happening, regardless of how positive they are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, these things take multiple generations over hundreds of years to eventually disappear, become seen as irrelevant,
Mm-hmm.
however you want to put it, to where like these things need, sexism, racism, classism needs to end. it's going to take hundreds of years for it to end. And the main reason why is because you had the concept of race developed during the like knights and castle era of Europe.
Right.
Like during the Dark Ages, the concept of race came about then. So then you had 500 to 600 years of this concept of like the different races before people came to before Europeans came to the North American continent. And then that transformed into modern day racism.
Mm-hmm.
All of the language, all of the stereotypes never changed. The words changed.
Mm-hmm.
Meanings did not. And then you had 300 plus years of like cattle slavery.
Yeah.
In this,
right.
in in the U.S. specifically, and then you had almost 100 years of Jim Crow laws and segregation laws after that. And then it wasn't until the mid 60s that the civil rights era happened. Mm-hmm. And so then I consider up until that, and even a few years after that was signed, I still consider that part of the Jim Crow laws, because even though that passed, states were still fighting them in the courts. And it wasn't until years after, when there was a bunch of Supreme Court decisions backing up the civil rights law, that, it actually framed everything.
It got like teeth.
It's not going to... Yeah, like it's not, and then of course everything that's happening now is the pushback that I was talking about before. Books that were written 50 years ago, 90 years ago, 150 years ago are going to seem relevant now because nothing's really changed. Superficial on the surface stuff has changed. Mm-hmm. The core beliefs people have, the way people view their neighbors, the way people view people in other states, the way people view, cultural differences between the big city and rural, is in the rural area, because I know in Europe the rural areas are more conservative than in the urban areas. It's just a fact.
Very much
when
so.
People live on top of each other, they tend to have more of a modern day liberal worldview when you live in a more densely populated area than you do in a rural area. And it all has to do with how many people you come across. Mm-hmm. And it's literally going to be like Gen Alpha's grandchildren that's going to be the time when like you're gonna start seeing things starting to iron out. I guarantee it.
That's so grim, man. That's so grim.
But it's real, because here's my what I consider evidence.
Yeah.
The Cold War lasted from, let's say, after World War II, because we were iffy with the Russians right after World War II, until the Berlin Wall came down in 1990 or 1989. Yeah. I can't remember exactly which year that was, but it was right. So half a century of domestic American and domestic British Cold War propaganda, where in the U.S. at least they were lumping any type of economic system and political system that did not prop up capitalism. So anything other than capitalism was being demonized under the same umbrella. So whether it be straight up socialism, democratic socialism, communism, and all of the isms fall under the umbrellas, was just seen as commie and evil. And right now the U.S., 30 years after the Cold War is over, is still dealing with the fallout of domestic U.S. government propaganda against Soviet Russia. To the point where Russia is no longer Soviet, And people, when they talk about Putin, still talk about, oh yeah, no, the Reds. Like, no, dude, they haven't been the Reds for 30 years. You need to stop. Um, like, you know, so like just that alone is going to take probably, I don't know. Let's see. In the US it lasted for 60 plus years. So probably 150 years it's
Oh
going to take to start seeing
no.
some signs that it starts, you know, that like you start to see people, you know, realizing that, oh crap, like this, you know, this isn't relevant, or this, you know, like this isn't the right information, or this, or, you know, the context of this information was not presented in the correct way.
Yeah.
And it was because we were at war for 50 plus years economically with, you know, these other people. So when you talk about a book that talks about racism and sexism,
Mm-hmm.
like like I said, the concept of race and that skin color determines race and one is better than the other was like 1300s, 1400s crap
Just part, yeah.
that just stayed around. So you're talking 4, 5, 700 years worth of indoctrination and solidifying into like cultural norms of people who come from Europe, affecting literally everyone else on the planet. It's gonna take
It'll take a little while.
probably if it's 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 gonna take a few hundred years to like eventually fully start the real process of getting over it.
And and that's, while that's probably true, I think the thing that's important is that these conversations in that time span do keep getting brought up, because you
Oh
need
yeah,
someone to challenge it. You need someone to literally say, you know, I understand that you're a police person, but how do you show, you know, your femininity in that role and still be taken seriously? And it's about continuing the conversation so it doesn't get lost in the background noise of what society's doing, that I love, right? And I love when the
yeah,
conversations happen, and I love when someone brings it up. And I mean, I've been blamed with this before, and I'm sure you and Alan have picked this out. Like, I'm a sucker for anything with subtext, as long as the subtext isn't horrific.
mm,
Like, give me a
yeah,
movie that like RoboCop, right? Give me a movie that means something,
mm,
and I'm like now gaga for the movie, right? Because it's
yeah,
a fun way to start a conversation that needs to have been happened without me going, Ryan, today we're addressing sexism, and going, oh, like
yeah,
that's how this has to be communicated at this point, I think.
yeah, yeah. No, and it's gonna take time because, I mean, and and take time and to use and to keep using RoboCop as an example, and you can fit Starship Troopers into this
Yep.
fold. You can tie a lot of movies into this narrative, but like when we when I first started, you know, when I brought up RoboCop, like your initial reaction was, "Oh, the movie with the robot cop,"
That was it. Yeah.
you know, like that. And so people watch these movies, and that's literally all they see. And that's where, you know, like you hadn't seen the movie yet. And it was once you saw the movie, that's when you were like, oh, this is just one giant piece of satire on Reagan's
Right. It was a
policies
protest
on
movie,
everything.
essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like it was an anti-Ronald Reagan movie, is pretty
Mm-hmm.
much. Um, but like it wasn't until you saw it that you got it. And I know tons of people that love that movie who don't get the messaging. And it's not because they're not intelligent. And this is
Mm-hmm.
one thing too. No one is no one who didn't get the education that was needed to understand the movie
Mm-hmm.
is it's not that they're unintelligent. It was just that they were never shown how.
Right. Well, that's it. It's a skill in and of itself.
Yeah, and that's where media. That's where I know it's a term that gets thrown around a lot, but media literacy
Right.
um, needs to be something that is around
It needs to be promoted.
when it comes to this type of stuff. Yeah. Um, yeah, but that's why books from like the 70s and the
Mm-hmm.
40s and even like the 1890s um, are relevant. And like you know, like here. And human nature doesn't change either, and that doesn't help.
No.
So to give an example on that, the first battle of the American Civil War,
Okay.
people who lived in the neighboring town and in the town itself turned it into a picnic day because rules of engagement back then were different. And so
Whoa.
everyone knew that like around noon or mid-morning the battle was going to start. And so everyone from high society to working class people were like, "Hey, let's go down. We can stand on this hill over here that's out of, where the armies are going to meet, and we can watch the battle."
That's insane to me.
People did that, and then people started to scatter when they realized how horrific the war was going to be after 5 minutes after the first
Right.
volley was shot. um but that's just human nature, especially for back then. Fast forward to the late 60s, early 70s, where the city of Chicago was hosting I believe it was the Democratic Party convention
Oh, sure.
for one of the presidencies, and there was the riot in Chicago
Yeah.
that broke out there. My dad and a bunch of his friends, when they were younger, were like, "Hey, they heard they heard people in school talking about how it was going to get that, like how it was going to down in downtown Chicago, like it was going to be bad. People were going to show up and they were done protesting and not seeing any change, and they were going to go down and finally do what needed to be done to get some real attention." Um, and so they went down to see how this was going to go. And then people started throwing stuff, and people started, like police and protesters started to physically clash. And my dad and his buddies, I remember my dad telling me this, they realized within a few seconds that they needed to leave because they realized that it was, they were wearing jeans, they were wearing white t-shirts, they were wearing, like a pleated coat, and they're looking around and they're seeing that the people in the protest are wearing jeans and plain shirts and
Oh.
pleated coats, and they needed to leave. And so nowadays, when stuff like that happens, people will rush out of their apartment or house and grab their phone and want to record some type of protest, some type of civil disturbance going on, and then post it online. Like it's all the same. If there was a car crash in front of my apartment building, I guarantee you that someone is going to stand on their balcony and record whatever is going to end up happening. That is the same mentality as those people showing up for that first battle of the Civil War.
I feel seen, Ryan. So we talked about this.
Like,
I
like
did this.
this
I
is
just did
just
this.
yeah.
Because I mean, so to fill everyone in, I live right by Heathrow. Heathrow just had that substation that caught on fire. I got really good advice because our power went out. We knew there was a fire down the road. I asked a few of my friends here. I said, "Hey, what would you think I do, or what should I do?" And one of my friends here, really, really wisely, said, "Devon, stay inside. It's the safest place for you. You have water. You have heat. You have a nice place to stay."
Hmm.
Don't I go running outside towards it, like with my phone to catch pictures and see what's going on? So like,
Yeah.
I get it. I get it, man.
Like, and it's human nature. It's just what it is. It's just at the same time, it's an example of why it takes so long for attitudes to change because it just by nature change isn't easy.
Yeah.
And so and the whole concept of a secular society is still brand spanking new
Yeah.
on the scene politically and economically. And that's why I would love to try to get this through to people that, like, look, you can you can want to change all you want, but it's going to take a monster of a force to actually make it work, and then for it to actually stay. And a prime example is what's going on over here right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's where, like, I don't want to turn this into a political thing, but, like, that's where, and that's why, like, you can read these books that were written from this guy from, like, the 70s, and why, like, you can put it down and be like, wow, that really speaks to me. That, this is really well done. And then you get that immediate, like, depression mode of, like, but this thing was written 50 years ago, and this is still a
We
problem.
still didn't
And
fix
it's like,
this.
yeah, it's gonna be a
It'll
problem past our lifetime. Like,
it'll take some
it's just
time.
because it all comes down to the individual person, and that takes a while.
Who knew this is where we'd get to from, hey, let's watch a fun cat movie? This is why
It's because of your author's other books
Thank
and
you.
the fact that this movie is a reflection of what this guy's done.
Thank you, Sir Terry Pratchett. Side note, he was knighted. He's Sir Terry Pratchett. He was also one of those people that went, I'm a knight now. I should have a sword. And he went and forged his own sword because he didn't want to buy one, which
Nice.
makes him
So-
a badass.
I have a stupid American question.
Yes,
if
tell
that's
me.
okay.
Tell me.
About getting knighted.
Yeah.
And it's more comical. It's a silly question.
Yeah,
Just putting it out
I
there.
love
It's
it.
nothing serious. I know it's a king now, but I'm always going to say queen because for
Right.
38 years of my life, or 39 years of my life, it was the queen over there. The sword that the royalty uses to knight someone is tapped on their shoulder, right?
Yes.
On, like, either side.
It's laid
on
flat
the shoulder.
on the shoulder, yeah.
Has anyone ever, like, because I've seen video of it done. It seems like they do it multiple people at a time. And has anyone's ear been nicked? And if it has, how long is that a story for? Because I know there's also rules and decorum when it comes to, like, dealing with the, like, royalty in that sense. So, like, has anyone's ear been nicked
Yes.
in modern times?
Okay, in modern times,
Okay.
I don't know about modern times, but one of the things that I had heard is that when knighting was a more kind of common practice and wasn't something that, like, the queen or the king bestowed upon somebody, and they actually made knights, that's what they would call earning their spurs, is sometimes they would get, like, nicked here or here by the sword itself. But...
Oh, okay, so they would be, like, cut.
Yeah. Yeah, but, like,
Okay,
lately
so
it's largely been
okay.
done by very, very, very old people that probably can't put enough power behind the sword to actually do any damage.
Okay, so what I'm envisioning
Yeah.
in my head is the queen in, being who she is and being elderly and, maybe if they're using a traditional sword, not having the fine motor control and, like, accidentally, like, sliding down someone's ear by accident and, like, I mean, like, not cutting, not slicing the ear
No,
off.
just touching it.
Maybe just, like, basically just kind of, like, touching it and like, the media putting out the video and not really saying that this happened, but, like, everyone's seeing that, like, oh my god, she almost took off Patrick Harris's, like, ear or something. But really, she didn't come anywhere close of taking off their ear. It was just, like, a simple, like it just came close and, like, touched.
Yeah, that would
Like,
be funny.
I've always wondered about that. Yeah.
I want to try to see. I want to see if there's clips of that. That's what I'm going to do at work tomorrow. Now, thank you, Ryan.
You're welcome.
Well,
One
with
of
that,
your coworkers comes by. What are you doing?
Don't worry about it.
One of my American friends.
it's British history. This is important. Well, with that in mind, Ryan, anything else for the Amazing Maurice before we pitch to what we're going to do next week?
No, I'm good.
Awesome. So next week we are going to watch or Alan actually, hopefully is finished with his revolution, is going to have us watch the Naked Gun movie starring Leslie Nielsen. It'll be my first time watching it, so I'm really excited. But until that
I
time,
really want to see how much of that movie still holds up.
you know what? I'm really worried about that too. It's one of those comedies that like maybe didn't age well, but I don't actually know. But until that time, if you want more of this, maybe less Terry Pratchett, but more of this, and Ryan and Alan, feel free to watch us wherever you get your podcasts. We are on Twitch. We are on Instagram. We are on Facebook. We are on anywhere that you could possibly get your podcasts. We are also with the Rum Runners Podcast Network. Go ahead and go on over there for us and any other great Rum Runners Podcast Network shows. But in the meantime, for You Have to Watch This Podcast, I'm Devon.
I'm Ryan.